Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rose McGowan.
And I'm Rain Dove.
Well, that went swimmingly.
No, there you go. That's our show, folks. Bye. All right, let's try it again.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Do you have to press the button again, or are we still rolling?
No, keep rolling.
Ah.
Hi, I'm Rain Dove.
And I'm Rose McGowan.
You probably come in here because you just really watched our video, Wall, What Is It Good For? Which, of course, is an homage to the song War, What Is It Good For? By Edwin Starr. And maybe some of you are a little pissed off, like, fuck you, what else are we gonna do? I mean, do you not care about border security? Do you not care about a safer America? Like, you people who don't live near the border, how could you possibly want no wall, you liberal fucking snowflakes? I mean, you know, you're probably thinking that we're just some hippy-dippy people who don't want borders or don't care about this country. But the thing is that our song isn't about not having pride in the nation, and it's not an anti-Trump rhetoric, it's not an anti-conservative or anti-Republican rhetoric. It's actually a song that calls for people to just think smarter and do better. And a wall is a one-stop shop, fix-it-all solution that's being promised to people that isn't going to fix the problems that the person who's calling for it says that it will fix. And we're going to break that down, but first of all, let's get into why we made this and how it started. So I'm going to hand this over to Rose.
Well, one day I was singing the War, What Is It Good For? Song to myself, and the Wall, What Is It Good For? Came into my head, and then I started kicking that around. I shared it with Rain, and Rain wrote some amazing lyrics to go with that.
And then I thought that, you know, this is obviously a really controversial topic, and I ran it by a lot of different people. I've talked to everyone from people who are MAGA individuals to people who are daca recipients. I went across the gambit trying to understand. My father's a Trump supporter and voter. My mother voted for Bernie Sanders, so they're the opposite sides of the spectrum. And I just wanted to know what they wanted. And everybody just wants everyone to feel safe. I mean, that's the thing. People just want people to feel safe. And the problem is that whenever you have a border, you're always going to have an issue. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have borders, but what I'm saying is that because we're deciding to have borders and have independent countries, when we create a zone of exclusionary behavior and we say you're not allowed in here, you're always going to have kickback. That's just a natural way of things. When you're telling people that they're not allowed in our country or not allowed to be in a particular place because of they don't fit a particular set of criteria, of course you're going to get kickback. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. This has been happening since the dawn of time. It'd be great if we didn't have borders in some senses because we'd be free to go wherever we want, but I understand people want the country to be the country. So if we're going to have borders, we need to think about them in a more comprehensive way.
We don't want to bore you to death. The following is a list of other things that you can do or other things that you can consider. Good job.
It's a long list. I'm prepping for it. Meow, 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 meow. 10 more seconds of this, yeah, yeah. What? Use the pause button to read it. Meow, 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 meow. Ah. Basically, one of the biggest issues that we have is that people keep on thinking of the border as having a border problem or a border issue. And a lot of times you hear it said over and over again, the border crisis, the border problem. But the problem is that there isn't a border problem, there are border problems. There are multiple little things that have led up to a big issue which is occurring, and it's all these little tiny issues. And what we're trying to do is put a big one-stop shop, fix-it-all Band-Aid on all of those problems by saying if you put up a wall, it'll really fix everything, but that's not the case. If we focused on every little issue and we solved the individual little things that led up to this really big conflict that we're experiencing now, that we'll have solutions that last longer than steel. And some of these solutions I'm going to give you an example of. For instance, people say that they want to stop drug drug issues in the United States and drug flow in the United States and drug trafficking. But you're not going to be able to do that by building a wall. One of the reasons why is because one of the most popular ways for drugs to come into our country is actually legally through the U.S. Postal Service and through mail. So if you really want to put a stop on drug flow and drug trafficking, number one, you're going to invest in the U.S. Postal Service, which has been severely defunded over the past decade, and give them the technology they need in order to make sure that the mail that's coming to people is safe and within what you consider to be legal means. Number two, you're going to educate people at home. We actually have a lot of drugs produced here in the United States, and we cannot leave out Big Pharma. Big Pharma is the reason why a lot of people get hooked on narcotics. We're giving people these really intense drugs, these really intense painkillers, and then people get hooked on them. And then when they can't afford them anymore, or they can't access them through their insurance or their Medicaid, they end up looking for them on the street. This is a really common thing. This is how people get hooked on some of the more intense drugs, even like heroin and speed. I mean, I remember my grandmother telling me that she was medically prescribed Black Beauties when she was growing up. That was from Big Pharma. We need to tackle Big Pharma. What are they providing, and what's their plan for making sure that when people are done using their prescription drugs, how to taper them off so that they're not dependent on them in a way that causes them to ask for homemade drugs at home. Number three, invest in the U.S. Coast Guard. You've got to invest in the U.S. Coast Guard. Not only is it going to help with human trafficking and drug trafficking, but in a large way, it's also going to help with people who are taking the ultimate risk to make it to this country. These are people who are getting on boats. These are people who are trying to get into our nation by cutting around the borders, and they're taking the ultimate risk because they can't afford to be denied. These are parents. These are people who are just trying to give their kids a better life, and they're afraid of being rejected. People who don't have their documents, people who don't have the opportunities that we have, and the access to technology and connectiveness that we have. And the U.S. Coast Guard could be rescuing these people and helping them. Let's be real here. Bambi could get separated from their parent. This would be devastating. One day, Bambi just frolicking around, doing their thing, and mom's chilling there. Then someone comes to build the wall, the whole group, and they separate the two of them. Before you know it, Bambi dies of starvation, unable to get to his mom's tea, dies on the other side of the wall. You want to be responsible for that? No, just kidding. That's not really my stand. But also, think about it. It's a real thing. We need to look at our own contributions to why this is happening. Why are these people coming up here? The U.S. actually has created in many countries in South America and Central America a situation that has put these people in poverty. And in a certain way, what we've done is we pulled the rug out from underneath their feet, and when their knee is bleeding from getting banged up on the floor, we're saying, tough luck, you deal with it. And the thing is, it's our fault that they're bleeding in the first place, and we need to look at how much of this is our responsibility. Another thing is we need immigration reform. We just need basic immigration reform. We have the technology to be able to process people at a different rate and at a different speed, and we also have the technology to be able to register information differently. We should be implementing that technology and having immigration reform. It is absolutely ridiculous that people have to remember half of the things that most U.S. American citizens don't have to know in school in order to be a part of our country. Like, if you haven't yet tried taking the U.S. citizen test, it is ridiculous. It's almost impossible, and it doesn't have anything to do with being a good citizen or being a productive member of the community. We can also invest in non-lethal technology for if you're going to have Border Patrol. Border Patrol shouldn't have to use lethal technology, but I understand people feeling afraid that their loved ones who are Border Patrol agents are going to get shot and maybe hurt. So what we should be working on is investing in more defensive technology, the ability for people to be able to just be protected in themselves, and invest in more effective non-lethal technology. So if people are violent, Border Patrol agents can protect themselves, but not at the cost of somebody else's lives. And we also should be retraining Border Patrol agents not to see everybody as, of course you have to be careful with every individual, and I understand police training says never get too comfortable. You never know if somebody can hurt you, so you always have to be prepared. But they should be seeing these people not as invaders, but as potential citizens of our country. People who will be paying the taxes to fund their paychecks. And I do think that there should be a retraining in that way. And of course, The processing and detention centers need to be reformed. Obviously, there are a lot of things that need to be tackled. All these little tiny things, if they were tackled in a way in which we create policies that are fair and clear, they can last for generations, hundreds of years, maybe even thousands if we do them right. Even other countries could adopt them. But by putting up a wall, all you're doing is avoiding the inevitable, which is that people are suffering. And some people just don't want to take it laying down. They want a place to go. They want to try to get something better. When people are suffering, you know, they have a couple of options. Number one, to say, I'm just going to be like this for the rest of my life. And number two, to say, you know what? This is my life. I got one life to live, and I'm going to do every damn thing I can to make sure that the life that I'm living is the one that I want to live. And when you have children, especially if you're a parent, if you have children, how can you look your children in the eye and say, you know what? It's just the way it is.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way. A lot of people will say, parents south of the border, well, just pick up a gun and rebel against your government. You want things to change? Like, go have a coup, have a war. But really, if you have kids at home, are you really going to say, here kids, stay at home by yourself while I go and pick up a gun and go like rise up against my government at the potential expense of my life? Good luck. I hope that like if I die, you're able to cover yourselves. No, they're trying to go for the most peaceful option. And the most peaceful option is to run to people that have, through every single Hollywood film, every single piece of media, all this propaganda they've learned about our country says that our country fucking cares about everyone, about them. And you might not care about them, but you can't blame them for having hope and having faith. And if you believe that immigration needs to be done legally, then at least make sure that if people are trying to go through that route, that it is possible and that it is fair. These people are coming from places that are destitute. They don't have money. They don't have the ability to pay the tens of thousands of dollars for immigration lawyers. And the people who don't have that money, a lot of times they're stuck having to do these horrible jobs that lend themselves towards the negative stereotypes that and images we have of these people, like prostitution and like drug running. And sometimes even crime. Because people have to choose. Do I go hungry? Or do I take from somebody who I think might have the means to be fine? I myself, when I was homeless, actually stole. I stole from department stores, clothing. I don't know if I'm going to put this in there. That's a big thing to say. But I wasn't always an honest person. Like, if you haven't been homeless, you haven't been in survival mode, you just don't know. So I'm not saying that your point is invalid or that this country doesn't deserve to have a border or that that border doesn't deserve to be protected. I'm just saying, don't fool yourself. You're letting people who have never had your plight in life make decisions about your plight in life. You're allowing somebody who has never once even sat down to a meal with the people who are trying to come into this country and ask them why, to make decisions for those people. I mean, it seems hypocritical. Just, we can think smarter, we can think harder.
We can do better.
We can do better.
We must.
We have to. Go back to the drawing board. We're a now society. We want answers now. Everybody wants solutions right now. But you're not going to get answers right now, for the most part, that will last for centuries.
The border is a really complex issue, and it's being solved right now, solved with a very simple solution, one that doesn't actually make a lot of logical sense. And I think that's where the fail is coming from. And it's to instill fear and terror in both citizens and non-citizens. And I understand in that approach, I suppose it could work, but I think this fiscally and materially is not going to work. I think we all know that deep down. We need comprehensive reform. This is what this is about. And we are allies, and that's all we're here to say. We're here to be allies for the community and for those who suffer. And we are thinking differently, and we hope you join us.
Yeah. And if anything, we hope that at least you have fun writing a comment, even if that comment is hateful. Just like, have fun with it. If you're gonna write like a negative comment about this video, please get creative. We love creative comments. Like, go for it. Like, compare me to a food. I love it when people call me like a naked banana or something like that. Like just lean into it, just like go for it, you know. Spice it up, you know. If you're gonna be a troll and you're gonna live under a bridge, live under the Golden Gate. Go for a great bridge. Unless you're, of course, a MAGA person, and you probably hate San Francisco, because San Francisco is
it's a sanctuary city.
It's a sanctuary city. So live under what's a good bridge?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not going to put it in. There's a bridge out there for you. We know there is one. All right. So one of the big arguments that people have about having a wall, like why would you want a wall? And the argument about having a wall is that if you put a wall up, that it's going to keep people from being able to come into this country illegally, and that a lot of people feel that most drugs and a lot of human trafficking comes through these wide open spaces out in the desert, and these that a lot of the people who are trying to come here illegally do it over these mountaintops and do it over these really vast stretches of land where there's just no border patrol really going there every 10 minutes, you know. So this would be the argument against why a wall would be effective in that nature, or is important.
I think there are far more human traffickers within America already. You know, you see a pimp with his girl, that's human trafficking. And that's riddled in this country. That's every Craigslist ad. You know, people either traffic themselves or they're being human trafficked by somebody else. The thing is, I lived in California. I lived in a border state for a very long time, and illegal immigration is definitely a problem. But it's not necessarily the crisis it's being portrayed to be, as if it's this huge thing that's all of a sudden kicking up. I've been hearing about the same problems for years, and nobody is addressing those problems. The only solution so far is this wall, which, if it happens, I think it'll be pretty clear in a very short time how not overly effective it is. And I think that's what's heartbreaking, is that it's just meant to inspire terror and fear.
Even the whole system just hissed at you when you said that. That was amazing.
You know, I feel for people on both sides of the issue, but when people say I want an America like it used to be, it never was. We've always been different. We've always been a melting pot. We've always been together. And I guarantee you the Italians probably wanted to put up a wall to the Irish, and the Irish wanted to put up a wall to somebody else, and that's just how it's gone here. But a wall is really symbolic more than anything, and I don't think it'll address the real issues of human trafficking. We've got so many problems in our own country, and I think we should be taking care of that first.
Absolutely. I think it's important that when we look at the argument that people are going through, these like vast, wide open spaces where there are no roads, and by putting a wall up, if you're going to settle where you are right now and you are dead set on the wall, at least we know that like you've thought of every single side and angle of this before you've settled, and then you've made an intelligent decision, an informed decision. But don't do one just based off of mass hysteria, and don't do one based off from your own fears. One other solution is we need to look at like poverty in our own country. Why are we so scared of an influx of people coming in? And part of it is that we don't have basic job security, and we don't have basic food security in this country. Capitalism can drive people to do great things, but it also can drive people to do desperate things. And it can drive people to a place where they're incredibly impoverished and they die of starvation. Capitalism is a brutal thing, and as I said, sometimes inspiring. If everyone had basic job security in this country, if everyone had insurance that they were going to be okay, that they were going to be provided for on a very basic level, while still being rewarded for striving beyond their basic capacity, I think like the country would be a much more open space. But because a lot of people don't have those guarantees, they're afraid of an influx of foreign workers because they're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of competition because they don't have that security to take care of them for things if someone were to like take their job, you know. So I think if we solved food poverty, if we solved basic job security in this country, we would solve a lot of our issues with immigration. Yeah, were there any particular people that stuck out for you, and what did you think about the project as it was coming together?
As the project came together, I got more and more hopeful that just through the spirit of community and people working hard, strangers coming together to make something impactful and to make something just that makes people think and gets conversation going, because this is all really about furthering a conversation. I think Veronica, the DACA recipient, is an incredible human and a great asset. And yeah, I think people will enjoy it. I think it's very colorful. And wall, what is it good for?